Welcome to the Loor Entertainment Podcast. I'm Andrew Southwick, along with Loor founder, philosopher extraordinaire, and I suspect a bit of a mean pickleball player, although he probably won't admit it, Jason Farley. Jason, thanks for being on this, this debut episode of the Loor Entertainment Podcast.
So good to be here. Really excited to get to be the first of the four founders that launches the podcast with you.
Yeah, real quickly, since this is one of the first episodes, Loor is brand new. We're going to dig into the details of Loor coming up here on the show, and we've got a lot, by the way. I don't want to forget to let you know what's happening. There is a connection between Disney, Bud Light, Target, and the Dodgers. And by the way, this is a special Original Sin Month episode of Loor podcast, and so we're celebrating Original Sin here in this Original Sin month, and so there is a connection. We're gonna unpack that here on the show. We are gonna talk about Loor, Loor.tv, what it is, how it works, because this is all about entertainment, and most of our entertainment today, if we're honest, sucks. How do we get good entertainment? Where do we get good stuff? Well, Loor is an answer, a solution to that, and we're gonna explain all about how it works, what it is, how Jason got involved. That's coming up. And then later on in the show, a top 5 competition. Now, let me tell you how this is going to work. All right. Jason and I, we're going to give you our top 5 to the chosen category for the episode. And then you, the viewer, in the comments, we want you to let us know which one wins, who has the better top 5. Now, if you are smart and you're astute and you're a wise and learned fellow, you're probably going to go with mine already. And I know you can sense that. But, if you want to be a rogue, if you want to, you like coloring outside the lines, well, then maybe Jason is your top 5. But anyway, we'll get there. So we got a lot to do, want to get right to it. But first, Jason, just give us a little overview. Loor.tv, what is it? Where can people go to sign up and subscribe? And bullet points on how it works.
Well, it is a new streaming service where the subscribers choose what goes on the streaming service. So the subscribers choose how their monthly subscription is spent in order to build the streaming service that they actually want, rather than the one that the executives from some other part of the country or other part of the universe, spiritually and or morally speaking, decide for you. So if you are subscribing to Netflix or any of those streaming services, they take a portion of your subscription and they use it to go acquire content and or pay for content to be made for their platform. What we're doing is putting up some options and letting the subscribers tell us who do they want to have making a movie for them, who do they want to have, which movie do they want made, which TV show do they want made, and for the things that are already created, do they want this on the platform? Do they want us to make a distribution deal with them and stream it for them on the platform? And so we've been out showing artists the platform and the freedom that they would have to have a direct connection with the audience. And the artists are really excited. We've got 40 contracts with artists that are excited to introduce to the audience what it is that they either have made or want to make. And now, as of today, it's open to the public. We've launched it behind an invitation wall and spent a couple of weeks working out all of the bugs. And the invitation wall worked so well that within 2 weeks, we went from 50 to 500 subscribers. Just with behind an invitation wall. You couldn't get it unless you knew somebody that you could strong arm an invitation out of. Right. But as of today, you can go to Loor.tv, Loor.tv, and sign up direct. So it is open for the public. Today is our launch day.
And so, Jason, if I'm hearing you correctly, then, so I subscribe to Loor.tv, and I can then take my subscription money and I can direct it toward the projects that I want to see, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so you can say, here's what I want in the library. Here's what and you can watch anything that gets funded on the platform with your subscription, but you get to help pick what goes there. And so we've built a system called our loot system, where you get loot every Tuesday on loot day to put towards to dedicate towards the projects that you want to see. And when a project reaches the amount of loot that it needs, then it streams on the platform or it goes into production, and you get to see anything anybody else said, hey, I really like this, and put their loot towards, and you also get to see the things that you put your loot towards.
Yeah. I'd tell you, one of the things that I think will catch on with this concept, with Loor as a platform, is that, in fact, one of the clips that we'll see, I don't know if it's on this episode or tomorrow's, or next week's rather, but it's a cross between Netflix and Kickstarter, where in some of the productions are still in production, and so some of those funds are used to complete the making of it. Some of them are already done, and so those funds are used to be able to finish their funds, because filmmakers, guerrilla filmmakers, it's a tough business, and so it helps those projects get made. And then you, as the Loor member, you get the benefit of not only choosing what you want to see, but also you're able to see all the other projects that have been funded, that have been released, and it's just incredible, I think, what people can do. And it's more than just being able to, or more than just having to pay my money to Netflix. And of course, now we know we have to pay more. They used to like to share passwords, but now they don't want to do that. So now I can, instead of complaining that Netflix isn't giving me any good shows other than Cobra Kai, I can say, hey, actually, here's a good show that I want to see. And I actually have a direct impact in getting that project made, whether it's something I want to see for my family, my kids, whatever, or something that I would enjoy or my friends would enjoy. It really puts in effect, it makes the Loor audience the studio bosses.
It does. And they are the executive producer. We like to say our audience is the executive producer, because they're the ones that gives the producer the finances that they need to be able to go out and get everything that the director needs to tell the story. So, and that's what you see all of these different things: the director, the producer, the executive producer, and the basic breakdown is the director's in charge of the story. The producer is in charge of getting the director everything he needs, everything he needs in the right place at the right time to be able to tell the story. And the executive producer provides something that the producer needs to be able to give the director what he needs. So in this case, the executive producers are handing out the check. Yeah. Here is what you need. Here's what the producer needs so that the director can tell the story. Excellent. So it's an exciting thing to be involved in. And the people that were in our beta that helped fund Teach All Nations and Dark Holler still talk about how exciting it was to watch episodes of Dark Holler come out and Teach All Nations come out, when they know that it's there because of what the work that they put into it.
So it turns out the streamers are letting us all down. One has committed itself to destroying Grandma's terms of endearment for her grandbabies. Sorry, Grams, you can't call them cuties anymore. The other has decided that you can't have dragons unless you order them in a brown paper sleeve, so the mailman doesn't have to be wantonly subjected to the TNA of the Seven Kingdoms. You could go to the Christian streaming services where you can put on your ruby slippers and repeat to yourself over and over, but at least it's clean, but at least it's clean. Apparently, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, is also horribly executed. But does it have to be that way? Can a high standard for storytelling exist with a moral backbone and a complete set of clothes for every actor and actress? That is what Loor is about. Quality entertainment for people not interested in seeing strangers naked. Of course, if you are just looking for your fix of and dragons, go to another streaming service, you perv. Be a part of the Loor. Click the link below.
And this is a good segue into really topic number one for our show, our main, culture topic, so to speak. But there's a connection, Jason, I see between Disney, Bud Light, Target, the Dodgers. You could add the North Face in there. And we've got many of you have probably seen some of the newsreels and the headlines of all the wokeified corporations happening. And of course, in June, which they call Pride Month, which the Bible would call Original Sin Month, we're to celebrate all these things. But there's an interesting progression. So, and I'm going to shameless plug here on my own radio show and podcast called Culture Crossroads. Find it in podpoint.com. You can, I made the case that particularly the transgender movement is a religion. And I walked through a few different aspects of religion, of faith, tenets of faith, where it absolutely is a religion. Not only that, but it's state sponsored and corporate sponsored. And so when you look at the progression, because, well, it started before then, but really what we saw in succession was Disney started with a lot of the wokeified stuff and Lightyear and Turning Red and all these things. And then of course, a month ago, we see Dylan Mulvaney, a dude dressing up as a woman for Bud Light, and that blows up and Bud Light sales tank. Then we have Target put in their Pride stores for kids and toddlers and onesies, because of course we do. And they're dealing with that backlash right now. And then, of course, the LA Dodgers bringing out the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who are cross-dressing men who dress up as nuns and all kinds of really just things. I gotta say, they are bold to do that, because they're not just doing it in front of Dodger Stadium. They're doing that in front of God, but that's something they will have to deal with. But there is a progression here, and it's this. With Disney, it was the suggestion and the initial marketing, really, in this recent setup. All the strange world with the gay relationship and what have you, and these kinds of things. And so we get it suggested, and it's specifically suggested to kids. And then two, with Bud Light, that's kind of the consumption aspect of it, right? Here's what you're gonna buy and ingest and take in, and in Bud Light's case, literally ingest or not. Then with Target, it goes on to the adoption and the promotion, because that's when you start to wear it. You start to rep the gear and the swag, and you become the walking billboard for this movement. And then finally, what I thought the Dodgers and Dodger Stadium did was they just held a worship service for it, which is the end game, if you ask me, on all this, is really you're bending a knee to another God. And in any culture, in any society, you can find out, you can know who's in charge by those that you can't question, those that you can't make fun of, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the thing, in all of these things, in all of that progression, and everything that we're up against, and you can add the teachers' unions and what's going on in the schools with the woke curriculum and transgender curriculum, and the main question I want to see is why do you think, we'll start with this, why do you think, and all this is entertainment, by the way, Disney is entertainment, Bud Light is entertainment, Target is effectively entertainment, the Dodgers are entertainment. We're using entertainment to get this across, and specifically to get it across to our kids. Jason, why do you think, first of all, this is a target on our kids? We haven't seen this before in our culture. I mean, we've seen commercial products marketed at kids, obviously, but not a movement that demands really your very body. And to be given wrong sex hormones and mutilated and promoting this as a common good. Jason, why do you think, first of all, that this spirit of the age is determined to capture our children through all these methods of storytelling and entertainment?
Well, I think there's actually three reasons. One, you can see the fact that that by going after the calendar, they want this to be the identity marker of our society as a whole, right? Like the calendar is one of the ways that as a community, as a society, that we say, this is who we are. We stop and we celebrate these particular things. And it's been interesting to come out of COVID and see each month assigned to a different minority group, a different, the attempt to take over the calendar as a society has societal implications. So they want the whole thing to be directed directly at, run by critical theory, right? Mm-hmm. So critical theory has to do with the rivalries within society between the powerful and the more powerful and the less powerful, or and that is demonic.
Yeah.
Right. To base everything at base value, to say that war is better than peace, to say that rivalry is better than community, at base value, that's just demonic, right? That's evil. We as Christians, we want community. We want peace. We don't want war. We don't want rivalry with our neighbors. But we're being told that actually that's our identity, and so you've got the retelling of history as stories of rivalry, stories of the weak being taken advantage of by the strong, and now they're saying if the weak all join together, we can take advantage of if the minorities all join together, then we can overcome the majority and be the minority together, and so it's not a question of if there should be slavery. It's a question of who gets to be the master and who gets to be the slave.
Exactly.
That's the question.
I want to jump in here because this is something that I've contended for some time. We talk about things like systemic racism or systemic sexism or, whatever the system is, right? I contend it's not the racism or the sexism that the opposition, the enemy, the spirit of the age has a problem with. It's who's in control of that system. They want to tell you who to oppress. They want to tell you who to discriminate against. If you notice, the Dodgers, when they originally disinvited the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and then there was another backlash, and then they re-invited them, and then they made a statement of apology to I guess the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and the world at large. They really haven't issued that kind of apology to any other group who might be offended, who might be disincluded by those actions. But it is something it's not the racism, it's not the prejudice they have a problem with, it's not the hate they have a problem with, it's who's in charge of the system.
Right, exactly. And so the whole way that system is set up is it's all about power. Who is the one who has the power to define? And the reason, and what they want though is power over reality, to say this is what's real, this is what's false. And we've seen that in every modern revolution, whether it's the Chinese Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, all of the revolutions. What they're saying is what they end up saying is the people in charge have power over reality. They get to say what is true and what is false.
Yeah.
And so the reason that the reason that the trans movement in particular fits into this is because it's that question. If enough people gather together and say this woman is actually a man, then it's true, right? It's a question of, are we looking at reality and trying to discover what is real and then use reality the way that God tells us to? What is this thing and what's it for is the question that Christians ask. They say, oh, what God gave us, God gave us this Bud Light. What is it good for?
Yeah.
I mean, at best, beer bread. You shouldn't drink that stuff. It's terrible. Go get a good. I mean, if you need a lager, at least get a dark lager, right?
I'm going to take your word for it. I'm a teetotaler, man. So I don't understand.
Oh yeah.
I drink Diet Pepsi, and I do have a Diet Coke today. I'm cheating on my brand loyalty.
You're well within your Christian freedom to be a teetotaler.
Exactly.
That's totally
right. Yes. I need permission.
Yeah, the question that's being asked right now, though, is and the reason they go after the kids is because they're looking to raise a generation that says, well, society has enough power to define reality. The government has enough power to define reality. And a generation of kids that's raised looking at not being able to even say something as fundamental as, hey, boys and girls, right, is confused enough to think, well, maybe they do have power enough to, and this is why storytelling is so important, because if you've been reading your science fiction since the golden age of science fiction, you know how this story goes, right? The ones who try to overcome biology with science are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Right. The ones that refuse to look at biology and say, oh man, this is a wonderful thing. This is so good. The way men and women are different and yet they fit together. It's so good the way they bring different perspectives to the same situation. And when they're in fellowship with one another, you get this you can see reality in 3 dimensions in a community where men and women get along and are on the same side and bring their unique perspectives to something. That those are the good guys in the classic science fiction stories. But then you have I mean you look at a guy like Schwab and think he's definitely the bad guy in the story. If you've been paying attention to your science fiction, this guy is the bad guy.
You're talking about Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum.
Exactly.
Great Reset, author of The Great Reset, the conspiracy theory that actually exists because he wrote a book about it. Anyway.
Right. Everybody's like, it's a conspiracy theory. Like, yeah.
What are you talking about? I'm just quoting.
Book explaining it.
I'm just quoting chapter 2. What do you mean? Oh, man. Yeah.
It is interesting to see that all of these companies that are pushing it all have that connection back to the World Economic Forum. They have that connection back to BlackRock and the ESG pushing the ESG score pushing groups. They own huge portions of all of these different organizations. So it's no longer a surprise to me once you follow the money around a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned BlackRock, and that was the article I shared with you before we did the show from the Daily Mail. Put it in no uncertain terms that first of all, BlackRock is the #1 investment company in the world. They handle more assets than any other company. Another one is Vanguard, and there's a third one that this is escaping me around, like Street something or other. But anyway, BlackRock and Vanguard, for example, they are investors in corporations. Okay, corporations. I'm not saying they invest in Target, but clearly they do to a degree. And so what happens is the corporations, then it's called stakeholder capitalism. The stakeholders are, BlackRock invests and they put their stakeholders in, and then what they do is they have made ESG, or environmental societal governance, that is now the litmus test for what kind of leadership your company should have and what kind of product your company should sell. So they're making everything about that ESG score. So, and that's really another version of social credit, which is, are you quote unquote diversified enough? Are you promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion enough? And of course, by diversity, all we mean is you're sexually indulgent and you have a darker brown shade of skin. That's diversity, because it has nothing to do with thought or idea. And then with equity, that means equality of outcome. And even Bernie Sanders himself, old socialist Bernie, never had a job in his life, still kicking and destroying the country one day at a time. But anyway, even Bernie Sanders, when interviewed recently and was asked point blank, is equality better than equity? Meaning equality, that is, we have equality of opportunity. That's part of America's founding principles, was we have an opportunity. It may not work out for everybody. For others, it might, and it has its own problems. Or equity, meaning a centralized group of leaders controls the outcome for everybody. Everybody has equal. We share a limited amount of resource, or we don't share, actually. We assign a portion of this limited resource to the unwashed smellies and the lowly masses. and Bernie Sanders said, he says, no, equality of opportunity is better. Equality of opportunity is better. And I mean, so even the people that push this don't believe it. But the problem is, when you have big money firms like BlackRock and Vanguard that really are the customers for these corporations, telling them, listen, we're going to fund you. You need your board to be this way. You need to show these kinds of things. Otherwise, you're not doing business with our firm. We're seeing this in banking as well, with companies, conservative companies. And this is really, this is not the only reason why, but this is kind of the economic pressure that we're seeing, which is really another form of fascism that America is embracing, because you don't see Disney putting out the same movies in China that they are doing here. And there's a reason for it. And it's not because they don't want to upset China. It's because they don't want to upset their paymasters, and their customers really are no longer you and me and my family and your family and our kids. Their customers are these paymasters like BlackRock and Vanguard and so on. You were about to say something, Jason.
Well, and you saw this, the way this influences the entertainment industry is, when BlackRock gets involved with things, they start saying, well, hey, if you do this or that, then the executives get a bonus if they can achieve these numbers, these ESG numbers. And you saw with Netflix, when they started pushing their ESG, they rebuilt some of the algorithm to encourage ESG scores to go up. Their viewership went down, but they didn't change it back until the Dave Chappelle incident, right? Where it got right out in front of them, and they had to make a decision in public about a very popular, very talented artist who had pushed the issue to the front, and a minority of their employees who were pushing the issue from the other side, when they were looking at the viewership numbers right there. They have the viewership numbers in front of them, and they're like, oh, we got to make a decision. They said, we're going back to our old algorithm, the algorithm that pushed things that we thought people would like, rather than pushed an agenda. Now, how long they stick with that is going to be a question of how much pressure is put on them from the other direction. But you see that this has a major influence on the way, when they reboot things, they become woke. When they do all those different things that happen, and you say, I don't understand why you would do this. Nobody is asking you to do this. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You realize that that money, whether it's preferred loan rates, bonuses for executives, the retirement accounts, you're getting bumped up because of the ESG score. All of those things end up affecting decisions they make, so that instead of thinking, how do I give my customers what they want in the entertainment industry, they say, how do I get my bonus at the end of the year, which is attached to my ESG score now, instead of attached to how well the company does. Right? So they can lose $200 million on Strange World and still get their bonus, because it's not connected to whether or not the movies they put out do well. It's connected to whether or not the movies put out have the right message.
And you see, I think
the quote unquote right message.
Right. Quote unquote. Well, the message of original sin. Let's just call it what it is. Right. So, and you saw that, and just quickly, we see that in real time with the NBA and how their product has absolutely gone under the bottom of the barrel. But they're making sure that they're keeping their ties with China open, and it's a similar pressure. It doesn't matter how many people don't want to see the games or the ratings go down or anything else, because they're still looking at that. Well, I'll get my bonus here, and we'll get this here, and we can raise our salary cap there and all this other stuff, because we can keep that part of our market alive and well. Let me ask exit question for this segment. Genesis 19, Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham, and you got Lot running out, and that's also where you see a scene in the Bible where the people are so sexually depraved, they come banging on Lot's door, give us your sons so we can have sex with them. And of course, then Lot gives them his daughters, and that's messed up as it is.
Right.
But you also have Romans 1. We've exchanged the creator for creation. We've exchanged good for evil. We've exchanged truth for lie. Jason, do you think we are living closer to Genesis 19, Romans 1, or some kind of weird, hellish combination of both?
Well, here's what I think is interesting about the Genesis 19 passage, is when he says, look, you can't rape the angels that are staying with me, but here, have my daughters. Their response is, who made you judge over us?
Yeah.
Right. So just saying, like, instead of homosexual rape, sodomy rape. Let's just have regular rape.
Yeah.
They consider that that he's judging them, right? That that somehow, which is, so Lot is not a heroic father in that moment. Just like to be completely clear, that was a huge father error. At the same time, it shows how messed up Sodom and Gomorrah were, that they considered it, even the hint that you should have a different kind of rape, that would be close, quote unquote, closer to natural relations, that somehow that in and of itself is viewed as judgment. There is a growing portion of society that screeches in that tone. And but I don't see but I have seen a lot of people start to say, wait a second, I'm not okay with that. When people see pictures of what actually happens with a sex change surgery, they say, wait a second, I'm not okay with that. So there's so I don't think we're as close with that being the marker that I would use. I don't think we're as close to Sodom and Gomorrah as some people think.
Okay.
When you have a whole society, when you're down to one family that doesn't think that way, that's when you're getting closer to Sodom and Gomorrah. So which I think France, leading up to the French Revolution, I think was closer to that, right? I think we're in the Roman 1 section where the main marker that leads people into the homosexuality in Romans 1 is ungratefulness. They're not willing to be thankful for the way God made the world. And so they start to push the boundaries of nature to see, if I push the boundaries of nature this way, can I find something that satisfies? If I push the boundaries of nature this way, can I find something that satisfies? Rather than finding our satisfaction in God and then filling up the world around us with meaning, because we have found meaning in Christ, and then we can go out and enjoy and be thankful for the world that God made and live well in it. We're at that point where we're trying to push past the boundaries of nature, hoping something over there to the side, something sideways, is going to fill the hole within us. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the new Spider-Man that just came out. I won't spoil it, but there's a reason that it's resonating with people when the bad guy is literally a hole. He's got a hole inside himself, and everybody is resonating a lot. And it was like, well, this is a perfect bad guy for this moment in time. Everybody is trying to fill the hole they feel inside themselves, and that's what's motivating this bad guy. It's really brilliant.
Well,
screenwriting.
But you can see, you talked about or you just mentioned the ungratefulness that marked Romans 1, and really all the sin and all the issue that Paul describes in there. I mean, it goes beyond sexual sin, but that's one of the ones that Paul talks about quite a bit in that passage. And we're certainly seeing sexual sin in our culture ramped to the nth degree. And I wonder how much of that goes back to being ungrateful or not learning to be grateful for what God has done, is doing, will do, and how God has made each one of us, particularly when it comes to the transgender movement, because I think the people in the movement itself, a lot of them are being used by those puppet masters we were talking about earlier to accomplish a whole different agenda. And as soon as they're done using them, they'll toss them aside. They don't care about the future damage they're doing. They don't care about the mental illness these people are suffering, the depression these people have. I mean, how much must you hate yourself to want to mutilate yourself into something completely different? But some of that can come back to, we're not learning to see, no, God made you on purpose for a purpose. And you're not an accident. You're not a mistake, as you are. You may not fit in, but that's actually a good thing, because neither did Jesus.
Right. Well, and in the words of Rocket Raccoon, you are a raccoon, and that's a good thing, right? It was the bad guy that said, I have to change and shift everything around in your biology, and then we will finally find perfection, right? What the perfect response was, I am a raccoon, in that movie, which is why, you get to the end. Oh, I don't know if you've seen it or not. The new Guardians of the Galaxy.
No,
this is a spoiler.
I know,
for anybody that hasn't seen it.
Yeah,
should I spoil it?
Go ahead. Okay. Spoiler alert. 3, 2, 1.
At the very end, all you've ever heard Groot say is, I am Groot, but the people that are a part of his family can understand him. And the very last line in the movie, everybody that's there in the theater understands Groot for the first time. And it's brilliant the way they slowly bring you into the family. But Rocket, he won't accept his own biology. And so when he finally does accept his own biology, he's actually able to rescue his family. And it brings the whole world into his family. His gratefulness ends up bringing the whole world into his family. It's really brilliant screenwriting. So that at the end, you understand Groot because you're a part of the family too. And it's, but that's what my wife has been telling my kids since they were little. Hey, as you grow up and start families, get your table ready. All of these folks that are being used by the transgender movement are going to need families. Yeah. So get ready to be that family. Open that table up, have them all over and show them what it is. Embrace them into your families because they're going to need it. And they're being used. It's really sad.
And Jason, that's why Loor.tv, LOOR.tv, that's why platforms like this now exist, because we're using stories too. We're telling these stories, but they're rooted in truth. We call it based faith entertainment. And it's a part of the solution. It's not enough to sit back and complain and be victims. We can bring something positive and something life-affirming, truly life-affirming, actual affirming care.
Absolutely.
To a world that, by the way, I really think the language that we all speak around the world is stories. Maybe we tell them in different, physical languages, but stories, we've always loved stories as humanity. And the stories, our language is what helps us to understand the reality we live in. That's why have power over that reality. That's why there's so much competition for it.
This is our documentary, Gothics, and after 2 years of production, it's almost finished and ready for viewing. This is Loor, and it's a new platform that our documentary will be releasing on. If you don't know, Loor is a platform that crosses Netflix with Kickstarter, allowing for subscribers to decide which projects they want their subscription to fund. This means that you get to vote with the money from your subscription as to which projects you most want to see come into reality. It's a unique concept of more power being given to the viewer, where the natural outcome is that the projects that people are the most excited for will be the ones that get funded first. Once a project is funded and completed, it goes live on the platform for all subscribers to view. In comes our documentary, which is a pretty wild and dark story about the YouTuber Gothics. And even though the Gothics documentary is nearly finished, we still need funding to pay for what it took to make it. In order to make this documentary, we spent money that we barely had, and we spent some money from friends who wanted to see it get made. Funding this documentary on Loor will allow us to recoup what we put into it, to pay our friends back, to pay for marketing to get out in front of more people, and to have funds to do the next thing. If you like what you've seen or heard from the Gothics documentary so far, or if you're aware of Gothics YouTube videos and you want to see her story told to a wider audience, please consider subscribing to Loor and putting your points into this documentary. Thank you.
We have to move toward our final segment here. We need to do our top 5. And our top 5 today, friends, is top 5 reboots ruined by wokeness. Okay? Top 5 reboots ruined by wokeness. I tell you what, Jason, because I want you to have the last word on this episode. So I'm going to go first on this, if that's okay. Normally, I'd have you go first.
Go for it.
But I mean, you're a founder of Loor, so technically I'm a guest in your world here today. All right, here's my top 5, and I'm going to do it from 5 to 1. And then again, those of you watching, Loor audience, we want to hear in the comments, wherever you're seeing this, Facebook or YouTube or wherever these things get posted, what do you think? Whose top 5 is better and why? Put those in the comments. We want to hear what you have to say. Okay, here are my top 5 reboots ruined by wokeness, and I'll give a brief reason why with each one. Number 5 are really kids shows. So Sesame Street's, Arthur's, and the new Muppet Babies. Like, I was actually really looking forward to more Muppet Babies coming out because I could show my kids. And then all of a sudden they have Gonzo pretending to be a girl to go to the school dance. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Come on. Well, that, I mean,
I haven't even seen that one. I love Muppet Babies.
right, yeah.
I love the Muppets so much. That hurts just to hear about it.
Doesn't it hurt? I mean, I remember on the Muppet Babies, that was a show when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed to watch TV before school, but they would play in the early morning before school. And so that was one of the shows that I would willingly get in trouble to get caught watching. I loved it so much and completely ruined it.
Well,
go ahead.
Marcus had all of us write on a sticky note and put on our computer about a year ago, can Loor buy the Muppets yet? As one of our goals. Let's just save them from wokeness.
Man, we need
and just return them to being goofy puppets, because that's what they should be doing.
And super funny, by the way.
Stop pushing an agenda. Just be funny, goofy puppets like you should be.
All right, so that's my number 5. My number 4, Ghostbusters 2016, Answer the Call. I know that's not a really original number. I do not like that reboot. And here's why. It's not because of the gender swap. I have no problem with new characters. I don't think anybody does. But it just, they relied everything on the gender swap. And then Bill Murray's character in it basically made fun of all the Ghostbuster fans. And I felt insulted that I even liked Ghostbusters with that particular film. So that's my number 4 for reboots ruined by wokeness. Number 3, and this pains me to say too, but Disney as a company, the entire company, because they clearly have rebooted themselves. I hope that they can be redeemed and restored at some point, because my family are huge Disney fans. My wife, since she was a kid, she grew up in Southern California. So, and like a lot of people, huge memories with Disney. But even when, last year when their executive producers, that conference call was leaked, and they're talking about, yes, we are going to chase your kids with our agenda. And I try to put it in everything. What they're doing is on purpose. It's not like you can't be accidentally demonic. I'm sorry. When you're messing around with that and you know what you're doing, and it has just ruined so much for so many. Number 2, the Wonder Years reboot. And that might not be popular. I get it. I think they had a real opportunity. I think they missed an opportunity to revisit that era. And yeah, they could talk about the prejudice and the racial discrimination and so on, but what they did, and this is what happens with a lot of these, and this also leads to my number 1, they took the woke morality of today and projected it into that time in the past. And that woke morality did not exist back then. So it makes the show, to me, not believable and not enjoyable and not relatable, because it's bringing that perspective and shoving it back into a time where it didn't exist, not in that way. And I love Dule Hill because I'm a big Psych fan, and love me some,
I was going to say the same thing.
Love me some Gus. But I just can't get on board with, and I was really excited because The Wonder Years is one of my favorite shows of all time. Anything that has like a lot of father and son stuff, it gets me in the feels. And so I was looking forward to that, but I thought, no, that I can't abide that. The dude will not abide. And number 1, the Paramount Pink Ladies Grease reboot. And because it's just farcical and unbelievable, I'm sorry. Again, I'm fine with gender swaps, but you do not have a Latin transgender, whatever the heck, parading around in the 50s the way they do. You can't take woke and put it in that era. It didn't exist. It's not there. It's not believable. It destroys a classic. Well, Grease 2 did that too, but it wasn't a reboot. It just sucked. But with the Pink Lady, what they're doing with that and that legacy, again, stuff I'd love to share with my kids. I'd love to continue that going. I'm fine with new characters, but Pink Ladies just blah. All right, Jason, You're up.
Well, I was so excited with Dule Hill.
Yeah.
And the first episode, I thought, okay, this could be good. Like they could really, and then it just, such a bummer to watch.
Yeah.
So, I have I actually did the top 6.
Okay.
Because I couldn't decide between a few. And so in sixth place, it was the 90s reboots that they've been doing. Bel Air, MacGyver.
Oh yeah.
Saved
by the Bell.
And the Saved by the Bell. And then, they're like the innocence, of those shows, was the charm. Yeah. And the way that they have said, well, we have to make them mean something important. The way that they, it just has been, that's been frustrating to watch. Doctor Who doesn't really count as a reboot, so I didn't put it on there, but they've been ruining it. It's just continuous.
Yeah.
But number 5, I put Willow.
Oh,
I was so excited for Willow. Willow was so important to me as a kid. It was one of those movies that caught my imagination more than just about any other movie. When they rebooted it and made the baby in the original into a grown-up lesbian, seemingly for no good reason, other than to get that ESG money, I think. That was really frustrating because it just ends up ruining what's a great story. That She-Ra, the new they did a reboot of She-Ra.
Is that back now? I didn't know that.
They on Netflix, and the first few seasons were great, and then they took they took it off the cliff. I had Ghostbusters too. I also had Ghostbusters for very similar reasons. But since you already had it on there, I'm going to replace Ghostbusters with another cartoon because I had too many cartoons because I watch a lot of cartoons. So I'm replacing Ghostbusters as my number 3 since you already took it. And I'm going to replace it with The Legend of Korra, the second Airbender series. The first one was one of the greatest cartoons of all time. They bring it back. And they ruin it in the last season by the character who's had different boyfriends all throughout fixes all her boy problems by becoming a lesbian. So frustrating.
Okay.
Then Velma, the new Velma. I don't know if you saw any.
Good call. I saw the ads for that, but yeah.
I love Scooby-Doo, and the only reason I think that got a second season was because so many people watched it. It was so bad, and it was so just in your face, like in your face. Here is our moral superiority to you, and that it was awful. And then Teen Titans, they brought Teen Titans back, and when they rebooted it, they switched the sexuality of a bunch of the characters. They took some really great growing relationships and they turned them into they added a sudden racial animosity that hadn't been there before. And you think all of a sudden they're all superheroes, but then all of a sudden they're all, some of them are racist too. And the one of them divorces his wife in order to go get into a homosexual relationship, and so very, very sad to watch the Teen Titans fall apart, which is a great TV show when it started. Great cartoon.
Well, there you have it. Our top 5 reboots ruined by wokeness. That's going to wrap up the show for today. Let us know which top 5 you think is better. And are there some reboots ruined by wokeness that we missed? Let us know in the comments. We want to hear from you. For now, for Jason Farley, I'm Andrew Southwick. Thank you for checking out the Loor Entertainment Podcast, and continue to come back every week for new episodes of the podcast, more shenanigans, more chicanery, and more lamenting of the nonsense while we look forward to the good stuff coming from Loor and Loor.tv.